In part 2 of the 2013 Kane Opponent Series, we're going to talk about the opponent in Armageddon, which is the Florida Gators, on September 7th at Sun Life Stadium at 12 noon on ESPN. Now here's what you need to know about the Gators. Their D was just outstanding all around, both against the pass and the run. And their special teams was amazingly good. While they have a new kicker coming in, and that's still a battle for the kicker's job up there, their special teams is going to still be a threat to deal with. Now, let's talk about the Gators. Let's break them down in 3 categories, starting with their offense. Now, the word of the day here is inconsistency. Now, one week they could be BCS contenders and be the best team in the country. The next week they look like total crap and garbage. Now, their running game last year was a force to be dealt with. However, their passing game left a little to be desired. Their O-line had a very tough time protecting Jeff Driscoll, who basically held the ball too long at times and either threw picks or took sacks. As a result, the receiving corps had a very hard time getting open downfield and getting yaks, which is yards after the catch. It's so bad up there, they don't have a lot of depth, okay, to begin with. Like I said, so bad up there, they had to convert Lucius Perifoy from defensive back to a wide receiver. Now, they're hoping he could be a dual threat on both sides of the ball. While he'll give them some energy, don't expect too much of a game-changing threat the way Gordy Lockbaum was back in the day at Holy Cross. Now, on the O-line, they lost two guys to graduation. Xavier Nixon, unrestricted free agent to the Washington Redskins, and James Wilson to graduation. And that line was beat up in the spring due to suspension and injuries. Remember, they had to cut back on their spring game because they had so many injuries to the offensive line. Alright. Although the Gators staff believes that an influx of more versatile linemen might help them against the speed rush, you know, the running game is going to take a hit. They lose Mike Gillislee to graduation, drafted 5th round by the Dolphins. And they were supposed to return Matt Jones, who they thought was going to fit into Gillislee's shoes nicely. And at the end of last year, I mean, he started to be that way a little bit more. But Jones being out for quite a while, I mean, he was injured, I think, just a few days ago. And I'm going to tell you something, the loss of Jones is a big hit to that running game because they have really nobody else when you think about it. So their offense is already inconsistent as is, and without the threat of Mac Jones there, let me tell you something, they're going to be teams that are going to really start ganging up, going 8-9 in a box to make Driscoll have to beat them in the passing game, which is already very poor as it is. Now, defensively, when you lose a lot of good talent to the NFL, you don't rebuild, you reload. You have to remember who they lost to the league last year in the last draft. Sharif Floyd, defensive tackle, went to Minnesota. Linebacker John Bostic went to the Bears. And Matt Elam went to the Baltimore Ravens. Yet, their D should be outstanding again with that back 7. And they have enough weapons to keep on humming. But the best part about everything the defense was able to accomplish last year is they did this without the top pass rushing prospect in college football, and that's Ronald Powell, who they get back after missing all last year with a knee injury. Okay. In the last off season, he was a man among boys. Okay, before that injury, but it came back early enough. He gave him a full season to recover. But you have a defense like that was 5th in the country, getting back the big thing that was missing last year, which was a speed rusher who can give offensive line spits. If he's the Powell before that knee injury, this team will be very dangerous. But there are some questions you have to consider here. Will their front 7 be loaded with 5-star athletes that'll move into bigger roles? Will Purifoy, also being on the offensive side of the ball at wide receiver, and Roberson give them the best 1-2 combo in the conference as far as cornerbacks are concerned? And will Vernon Hargraves III be an immediate impact player as a true freshman? Now did they lose too many players to the league to still be as good as they are, if not better? That's still to be determined. Now on special teams, one of the big weapons they lost to graduation and was drafted in the fifth round by the Miami Dolphins is Caleb Surges. Now it'll either be up to senior Brad Phillips or redshirt freshman Austin Harden to fill those shoes Sturgis leaves behind in Gainesville. You want to ask yourself how big those shoes were. He was 24-28 on field goals last year, and the 4 that he missed, he had 3 of them blocked. This guy had the accuracy from 40+ yards, being 8 for 9. But and 2 of those were from 50 yards plus. A 50-yarder against Georgia and a 51-yarder at A&M in the second game of last season. Now they're going to be in close games again this year. And when you consider that being inconsistent at times and not taking chances in the red zone, they're going to need a kicker that comes up big for them in key spots. At punter, they do get Kyle Christie back, so we'll see how that goes in special teams. Now in closing, let's make absolutely no mistake here. As much as I dislike the Gators, okay, and you know how I feel about that. They're going to be very good again this year. But when you look at that schedule, they open with Toledo at home before they come to town in Armageddon. Then after the bye week, they host Tennessee before they go to a very good Kentucky team that's very much improved under Mark Stoops. Then after that game, they host a dangerous Arkansas team before going to Baton Rouge to play LSU, and then Columbia, Missouri the following week to play Missouri. Now after a second bye week, they have the cocktail party against Georgia that some could think that something could dethrone Alabama's SEC champs. That'll be the first of a play-in series for the Eastern Division. They close the SEC play with 2 very tough games. Vanderbilt at home, who many think could be that sleeper in the SEC East, and a trip to South Carolina, with the latter likely deciding the East and the trip to Atlanta that goes with it. Now after a game against Georgia Southern, who's a very good FCS team, they closed this regular season with FSU at home. But when you look at that schedule, I mean, there are some tough games on that schedule. I'm going to say for the Gators, my prediction is 10-2 for 2013. Now in part 3 of the 12-part series, I'm going to talk about Savannah State. Take care, and I'll see you in part 3.